Y'all, today's show is so good.
But number one, I've never seen an intro like that.
It is my hope and desire that not only will episode 30 still be fun, but episode 300 will be even more fun. You are made for something great, so go and be awesome.
Ten seconds remaining.
Show. My name is Renee Hastings, and I'm your host of Renee Speaks. Y'all, today's show is going to be so good, and part of that reason is because of our amazing sponsor, Wilbron. Wilbron is Alabama's premier public relations firm. If y'all have any PR needs, be sure to hit them up at www.wilbron.com. Another reason why today's show was so great is because we have an amazing guest with us today. Today's guest is Elizabeth Solaru, and she is a multi-award winning luxury business consultant. She's also an author and a renowned cake artist. As CEO and founder of the Diversity in Luxury Awards, she champions inclusivity in the luxury sector. Originally a microbiologist and headhunter, Elizabeth transitioned into luxury after achieving international acclaim as a cake artist for UHMWIs. Named one of the world's masterful 100, she has appeared on BBC, Channel 4, and Sky TV, and she's also spoken at JP Morgan and the Inner Circle Experience. Elizabeth is passionate about mentoring the next generation of luxury professionals, believing that creativity, diversity, and authenticity are the future of luxury. Y'all, put your hands together for Elizabeth Solaru. Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm very well. All the better for being on your amazing show. The intro was stunning. It was really good.
Thank you so much. We have an amazing crew behind the scenes that I wish every now and then could just pop on so they could say hi, but they truly are fantastic and are professionals at making us look good.
Absolutely. What an amazing team. And my congratulations to you for having such a fantastic crew.
Well, thank you very, very much. So let's dive right in, Elizabeth. I know that we met originally in a speaker group where we got to go into breakout rooms and talk about different things. And that's where we got to know each other just a smidge. And as the smidge that I got to know back then in that breakout room, I was like, I've got to know this lady. I need to know who she is, how she got where she is, and how our audience can learn from her and get where she is. So why don't you start us off, Elizabeth, by telling us a little bit about your background, like how you grew up. Was luxury always a part of your life?
That's actually a fantastic question to open with. I wouldn't say I did not grow up in opulence. I say that a lot. My parents were normal. My dad was an engineer. My mother was initially a teacher, a nurse, and then she became one of the first few female insurance brokers. So growing up, they were very much about education. They were very much about doing the very, very best that you can. And also being of African heritage, education was absolutely crucial. So I was born in London. I was raised partially in London. Then I was taken back to Nigeria. I was raised there. Then I did my schooling there, did my degrees. I got my first degree in microbiology, and then I got my master's in medical microbiology and parasitology. And then I came back to the UK to train as a scientist. And my first job was at St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington. And then I went on to work at Great Ormond Street Hospital. And then that was how really I started my career.
Wow. Wow. So that education, of course, is the foundation of everything. So the more educated you are, the better your opportunities for not only advancing in life, but just exposure to different people who you may actually end up crossing paths again with later on in life. Have you found that's been the case?
Oh, absolutely. And I know there's always a debate between, oh, is the degree worth it? Because you're going to get all that debt and then you might not get a job, then you won't be able to pay back those loans, etc., etc. I would always, especially as a woman of color, especially as a person of color, I would always stay on the side of having a degree, because there's a process you go through while getting your degree or degrees. There's also something around the discipline, the rigor, the meeting of different people, the networking. So for sure, I think it's always best to have a degree. But a degree is one thing. Creating opportunities is another thing, because I would have been happy being a scientist. I would have been happy in the job. My aim was to be a professor. I was a very studious child. I loved books, except that I remember one day in the lab, I just thought to myself, I'm not willing to die a lab rat. There's got to be more to life than being in the lab all the time. So that was when I did something very impulsive. I will not recommend for people to do it. I literally just resigned. I remember resigning. And then later that week, I resigned on a Monday. And I remember on a Thursday, I was walking past the telephone in the lab. And whenever, if it rings as you walk past, anybody picks it up. I picked it up. And the guy at the other end said, would you like a job? Would you like to work as a locum? And I was like, oh my goodness, this is an answer to prayers. So I accepted his offer because obviously I didn't have any other job. But then at the same time, I then enrolled and decided to do an MBA because I wanted to get into the world of business. And in my mind, as an African, if you want to get into a new field, you go and get another degree. So I enrolled. So I was working part-time as a locum and I was doing my MBA part-time as well. And that was when it opened up a world of opportunity for me, because I realized very quickly that doing the MBA is one thing, getting a job after it is another. So I learned to really, really network. But the thing about the MBA was that was a different experience, because I remember walking into the classroom day one, and someone who doesn't look like me, a non-Black person and a non-female, looked at me and he said, I hope the standards have not been lowered for some people around here. And he said that because the racism in the UK is very passive aggressive. It can be very polite, wear a suit and tie, but it's deadly, it's insidious. And I made a decision at that point. I said to myself, do I really give him fire for fire, or do I keep quiet? And then I thought to myself, I don't want to be known as the angry Black woman, especially as one of the few Black women in the class. So I decided to get him in a different way. I decided to be the best in that class and to stand out and to be excellent. And it was really weird because later on, we then discovered that he was the only person in the class without a degree. He had a very senior job at a very well-known company, like a global company. And I know for sure that as a woman of color, there is no way I would have been given such a job with no degree. And it just goes to show that what they say about twice as good, half as much is absolutely true. So did the MBA, came out flying colors. And because I badgered my business school so much about the lack of opportunity, they said, you know what? Why don't you become the head of MBA careers on a temporary basis? And they gave me an office, didn't really give me any pay because I really wasn't on the payroll, but they gave me an office and they gave me an email. And I leveraged those two things like crazy. I reached out to all the headhunters. I reached out to so many companies. I reached out to a lot of the alumni. And then I started organizing career evenings for the MBA students that I was supposed to be their head of MBAs for. And it was while I was doing that I got a tap on the shoulder and somebody said to me, I'm setting up my own headhunting firm. Would you like to join me and work for me as a headhunter? And that's how I got one of my incredible breaks.
Wow. That is what a story. Now, what you have been through is nothing short of just, I would say in some cases it could be considered trauma. To have to go through that and endure that kind of negativity going in on the first day of class to get your MBA from someone who doesn't look like you.
Yes.
But I love how you used it as fuel to be excellent, to be your absolute best. And it kind of goes to show too that imposter syndrome is real. And it's not just about being a woman. It's not about being Black. It's not about anything. Anybody can suffer from imposter syndrome, which to me, that's what that guy was going through.
Yes.
Here he was, had all this position and role and responsibility and no degree to back him up. And so I believe, this is where I'm going to say that he was suffering from imposter syndrome. And I just love how you did not let his insecurity or his negative words impact you, except for the better, to make you better.
Absolutely. And I think now, because of what you've said, thinking about it, I think you're absolutely right. It was imposter syndrome. It was him thinking, let me pick on someone I think is lower than me and inferior to me. Let me shake the trees and try and elevate himself. Now you say that, I see that. And I'm thinking, what a shame. Why would you need to have, as the Maya Angelou said, if somebody has to be on their knees to make you feel tall, then what kind of a person are you? So yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're.
And that when people have to make other people feel lower or less than or feel bad in order to feel good about themselves, they've really got a problem. And I just pray for them. So thank you so much for sharing that part of your journey, because I'm sure that every part of our journey serves a purpose and it prepares us for something else later. Because when we've gone through not only the rigor of attaining a degree, a second or third degree at this point now, but now we have all this past experience to pull on. We've got these past people as resources to pull on. And now with you becoming the locum for this gentleman and kind of setting you up to become a headhunter and partnering with someone in this whole new headhunter space, all of it, would you agree, all of those things in the past had served a purpose to get you to where you are?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt, because I think pulling from experience, pulling from whatever it is you're going through, I think it kind of gives you a boldness to just say, you know what, if there's a film, and the one of the catchphrases from that film, and I think it's Rocky, I could be wrong, is if he dies, he dies. And that was my approach. My approach is, if I fail, I fail. If I succeed, I succeed. I mean, whatever it is what it is. So I just kind of said to myself, I'm just going to go for it. And again, I accepted the job as a headhunter.
Mhm.
And that was a different world. And then I realized very quickly I had no contacts because headhunting, you need contacts in order to get those meetings with chief executives and decision makers. I had none of those. I also had no money. I also didn't go to the right schools. So what do I do? So I thought to myself, okay, what are my skills? One of the skills I had was writing. So I used to write when I was the head of MBA careers. I used to write articles for a magazine for free. I didn't get paid, but it was about leadership. It was about careers. So I then started writing articles for the company website because the company needed new material every day or every week. So I made myself a different by doing that because people didn't like doing that. And then my boss, the guy who tapped me on the shoulder, he used to run job hunting workshops for executives. So 300, he would hire a massive auditorium, 100 leaders in a room. And I thought, that's an opportunity because he did it. So he would teach them about CV writing, interviewing, the process, the back end. And then we, as his staff, we would then network with these executives. So it was a win-win.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that's very smart. So I started learning how to run those workshops. And within a year, I was being hired out by my company to do the workshops in business schools, with some of our clients. I remember there was the I don't know if you know about the National Health Service. It's our health service in the UK. It's free. Treatment is free at the point of delivery, etc. So, and they have at least 300 chief executives. And I used to do job hunting workshops for people running multi-million pound organizations and charities and private companies. And I've never run a lemonade stand in my life. So
Wow.
that kind of experience. And I literally learned on the job. And I knew that, and there's something there about being trusted as a woman of color in such a public facing role representing the company. We're talking about maybe 20 years ago, where you walk into the room and it's skepticism. So people are like, what does she know?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember as I was delivering my workshop, I was being attacked by, again, another person who didn't look like me, who wasn't the same gender as me, and he was laying into me. But he was laying into me and I stood my ground. And I remember saying something like, why don't you keep quiet, listen, and if you think what I've said is nonsense, then fair enough, rather than you spoil it for the rest of the people who are listening here. And I remember a lot of women and men came up to me to shake my hand and say, well done. Wasn't it awful? Wasn't it awful? So those are some of the experiences you draw on, and it helps with your resilience. It really builds your resilience and it builds persistence as well. And it also builds like a test of character, because at the end of the day, you need to stand and fall for whatever it is you believe in. And yeah, I'm linked to the guy on LinkedIn right now.
Isn't that funny?
he probably forgot he did all that nonsense. He's probably forgotten, but I haven't.
Right.
But I haven't. And at that time, he was actually the head of a business school. So it just goes to show that people are people. It doesn't matter how high they get in life. The need to put people down is still very strong in some people.
Right. And again, that is just, it's a testament of their own insecurity and something that we shouldn't take personally, because we know who we are. We know our value. We know our worth. We know what we bring to the table, and we can stand our ground on that and overlook the nonsense from the negativity from those who are just insecure about their own selves. And because that's a personal problem. We can't fix it. That's not your business. That's none of your business. What they are going through in their own personal lives and their own personal inadequacies that they are projecting onto other people, you can't fix them. All you can do is focus on you and what you have to offer and the blessing that you are to others, and continue just doing you, and life will be great. I love that. I love how you did not let that person stop you and you stood up for yourself. You did not let him just walk all over you and ruin the experience for everyone else in the class. I mean, being a heckler is one thing, but just completely distracting and just being negative about it all, no one was forcing him to be there, or were they? Maybe he didn't want to be there. His boss made him go. You never know. But it's so great that you didn't burn the bridge, and you guys are now even still connected on LinkedIn. And
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I remember and then again was being doing my headhunting work, minding my business. And then I think I changed companies a couple of times, but I remained a headhunter. And then 2008, we know what happened, that the banks collapsed, the city tanked, and then I lost my job. And I thought to myself, okay, what do I do? And this was when I remembered that, you know what, I've always had a childhood dream. It goes back to what you were saying about childhood. I had a childhood dream of making cakes, of being a baker. But I'd always baked on the side. Even while I was a headhunter, I kept it my dirty little secret. I baked on the side, but I was very serious about it. So I would decorate cakes, I'll bake cakes and bring them in for colleagues, etc. So when that happened, I thought to myself, you know what? Milestone birthday, I've lost my job. I'm going to start baking cakes. And then I quickly realized that it wasn't as easy as setting up a website and waiting for things to happen. And I thought, okay, I have no money. What do I do? How can I make this work? So I did a couple of things. So the first thing I did, I took the yellow pages and I rang every event planner in the yellow pages. And I probably got to number 90 something or 100 and something. And then I got through to this office. I didn't know who they were. They didn't know who I was. But the lady at the other end, she said, do you make cupcakes? And I said, of course we make cupcakes. I'll deliver some samples to you in a couple of days. And she said, great. So I did exactly that, deliver the samples. And on my way back home, I got a phone call saying, would you like to come back and please meet Lady Elizabeth Anston? And I'm like, who's Lady Elizabeth? But then this was me asking in my head, and I said, sure. So I went, I met her, only to realize that I had just delivered samples to the first official wedding planner, event planner in the UK, who is the late Queen's first cousin.
Oh my word.
And she just said, we loved your cakes. The samples were amazing. And she gave me a job on the spot. So she said, I got a party, 250 cupcakes. She wrote me of course, I charged way too low. I remember getting a private check. It was the first ever check from a private bank I'd ever seen in my life. I was too poor not to cash it. I had to cash it. And I made the cake, I made the cupcakes, delivered them, etc. And then she did something incredible. I mean, if the story had ended there, that would have been great. That would have been good enough for me. Oh my God, I got to do cakes for the royal family. But then she then did something else. She wrote me an amazing letter. And she said, you can use this letter as testimonial and as marketing material on all your assets. Oh. And I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. So of course, that's what I did. I put it everywhere. And the testimonial is still on my website, by the way. Mm-hmm. So it just goes to show that just having the courage to call everyone, and I was getting some really rude responses, as in, really rude. They were, go away. Some even swore at me. We don't need, we don't need your sort, blah, 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 blah. And I said, fine, don't worry about it. It's okay. So for that to happen, I was like, oh my God. And that was the beginning really of working with her once in a while. And she was just lovely. She was a lovely, lovely person to me. So that was the first thing I did. So the first thing was taking the yellow pages and ringing everybody.
Wow. Well, no, the first thing you did, I think, was pull up your big girl pants. And even though I'm sure you were terrified,
oh yeah, oh,
through the fear, you did it anyway. You called every single number, not knowing what you were going to get on the other end. And you persisted even past all the negative phone calls, the negative responses. You persisted. So there was a whole lot that led up to that first thing. Absolutely, 100%. And even as business owners, when we're trying to grow our businesses, we sometimes have to do the exact same thing. We have to just feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's how you move forward. That's how you build intestinal fortitude to continue going and reaching and getting to that next level of where you want to go.
Oh, I completely agree. And also, I think for me, people say, oh my God, what drove you? Or how did you find the strength to do that? And I sometimes say, well, desperation. When you know you've got to succeed, no matter the obstacles, when you know you've got to succeed, you will do what you need to do. So that was the first thing I did. So as I was getting orders in bit by bit by bit, I remember finding an amazing driver for my deliveries. And we were chatting one day and he was like, because in the UK, we have cab offices where you can call and order a cab. This was way before Uber, by the way, guys. So we have what we call cab offices. You'll call and a mini cab will come and take you to wherever you need to go. So, and he said, you know, my offices, we leaflet. And the moment he said we leaflet, I was like, hang on, would you be able to do, if I came to your office and spoke to the controller, would you be able to do to give leaflets out to really nice addresses, the really posh ones? And he said, yes, of course. So I remember I went in to the office and I spoke with the controller and I said, how much would you charge me? And he said, oh, don't worry about it, about a tenner. So I gave him £10. So for the princely sum of £10, I gave him a lot of leaflets, really nice ones. And then I can always tell when they leaflet because I will always get a phone call, at least 3 calls saying, saw your leaflet, love the look of your cakes. Can I place an order, please? And because I said to them, make sure you go to the nice addresses, please. And that was so again, with not very much money, I was able to do that.
Wow. And look at these cakes. For y'all that are just listening online to the podcast, y'all are missing it. Y'all are truly missing out. Please check out Elizabeth's Instagram page because these cakes are divine. Oh my word. They're like something out of a dream, honestly. So beautiful, so stunning.
Thank you.
Of nothing but royal elegance. Look at that. Oh my word. It makes me want to get married again. I need an excuse for a cake. So stunning. Oh my word. Absolutely stunning. Well, so thank goodness. So you know what? I am a firm believer that people cross our paths for a reason. There are no accidents in this world.
Yeah.
And for you to cross paths with that driver, and for him to say to you that they leaflet, and so he was your ambassador, handing out tracts, for lack of a better word,
exactly,
to the posh addresses that he got to go to that you would never even have access to.
Unless I leafleted myself, which by the way, I did try. I tried one winter day and I thought never again, because these addresses in gated communities, one, you got to find a way to get into the gated community. Then they have private police patrol cars.
Yeah.
who will ask you, what are you doing? Then their letterboxes are not visible outside.
Right.
So I
Right.
did try, because I always, there's a scientist thing in me, I always test my theories. And I thought, let me check to make sure that they are indeed leafleting. And it's a bit tricky. So I then left that to the professionals.
Yes, yes. Well, and it's so smart. What a smart thing for you to do. And for him to just charge you 10 pounds. Yes, sir. You may have 10 pounds. Can I give you another question? I mean, so wonderful. What an absolute blessing to have him cross your path and for him to say those words and for that to be the next phase of your journey. Because if it's from here then that your popularity grew.
Yes, so popularity grew, but, and again, the one thing I didn't do, I really hid behind the cakes. I barely showed my face. My Instagram is mainly cakes up till maybe this year. That's when I started really showing my face. Having said that, I was invited to so many countries to speak. I wrote a book. I wrote a cake book, which I called Opulencia. I printed only a limited amount of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that happened as well was that I got invited to speak in so many organizations. So as a woman in business, I got invited into the corporate world because I remember I came from the corporate world. So I got many invitations to speak about entrepreneurship, to mentor people, and to just generally do what I could to make sure that the entrepreneurial landscape was as a level playing field as possible to the people coming up behind. And I was doing that happily, wasn't charging for it. And then COVID hit. And that was when the story changed again.
Yes, COVID had quite an impact on so many things. But I love how you were leveling the playing field and starting this diversity, equity, and inclusion process in the luxury industry. So tell us a little bit more about that. First of all, what sparked your interest in creating and focusing on diversity and luxury, and how can luxury brands break barriers to inclusivity?
Okay, thank you. That's actually a brilliant question. And there are three parts to that. So I'm going to take it one by one. So what sparked my interest was COVID. I was getting invitations to speak a lot on luxury and luxury brands and luxury business. And I assumed everyone knew what I knew. But the more I was speaking, the more I was realizing actually there's a massive gap here. So I did what my research brain told me to do, which was to research. And I remember Googling, and a professor in, I think, Penn State, I believe, she wrote this paper, brilliant paper, saying there isn't enough diversity in luxury. And I thought, oh my God, is that true? Wow. So I set out to find out if it's true or not. And then I was finding that, then on top of that, because it was COVID, Clubhouse, there's an app called Clubhouse, joined, and I was looking for luxury rooms. I didn't really find any. So I started my own luxury room. I then started my own luxury business podcast. And what had happened was that the big brands obviously dominate luxury, but the smaller brands like myself, there wasn't really a lot of resources around us as small businesses. And then I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I decided to set up Diversity in Luxury, and I decided to set up the Diversity in Luxury Awards, where I was highlighting and showcasing diversity in the luxury space. But I decided, actually, I'm not just going to restrict it to the UK or to America. I went wider. I went as far, we looked for companies as far as China, India, South Korea, Africa, South America, the Middle East. And also research shows that people of color spend the most amount on luxury. In fact, Black people spend 30% more. Black people and Hispanic people spend 30% more relative to their income on luxury goods and products and services. And to me, how can we have people spending the most on luxury and they're not being represented in the boardrooms? Not just the odd catwalk where we're thrown on the catwalk, but in the boardrooms as well. Right. And also in entrepreneurship as well, because that to me was really, really fascinating. And I then I thought to myself, okay, we can do activism. We can do what I call the carrot and the stick approach, where the stick is to highlight the problem and keep talking about the problem, or we can find real solutions, which is a carrot. And I know that when you do an award ceremony, which is positive, I would rather celebrate people who are doing amazing things as a shining example to other people, rather than keep saying and keep complaining, oh, there isn't anything. So I set up the awards. I floated the idea, and I said to people that I know who own luxury businesses, and I said, is this a legitimate idea? Everyone was like, oh my God, it's much needed. Let's go for it. So I did the first awards in January, and I invited 50 brands all around the world, and they flew into the UK. So that alone gave me palpitations. I was like, oh my God, people came. And then what we did was we highlighted brands. So to give an example, there's a needlecraft school in India called the Chanakya School of Needlecraft, and they do all the embroidery for Dior and Hermes.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. And people were like, what? I was like, yeah. We found there was a guy, a proper English, not ordinary English guy, lives in Crewe, and he left school at 16. He's one of the best CGI artists out there. And he did a collaboration with Bentley, the car people. So I found really amazing pockets of diversity, because to me, it's not just diversity of gender, race, etc. It was also diversity of ideas, diversity of behaviors and actions. To give you another example, we all know the brand Chanel.
Very well.
Their chief executive is a woman of color. Many people don't know that. So not just because she's a woman of color, but she did something incredible. So when she was appointed in 2022, the first thing she did was, now Chanel has a fund, a 20 million euro fund for the education of girls around the world. She took that fund of 20 million euros and she increased it to 100 million euros.
Wow.
Who does that? I mean, I've appointed chief executives, and I've not met a chief exec that the first thing they do is spend more money.
Right. Oh my goodness. This is so impactful.
Exactly.
This is changing the face of the entire luxury industry and access to it. How fantastic. Good for her. So great.
So 20 million to 100 million for education of girls around the world. Listeners can check it out. It's called the Foundation Chanel. And to me, I had no hesitation in giving her the award, because she quintupled that amount to make more of an impact. There are other brands that we found out there doing impactful, amazing work, entrepreneurs. There was a jeweler from China who was the first person to ever create large sculptures from titanium. Now, anyone who's a jeweler who works with metal can tell you how difficult it is to work with titanium. So at the end of the day, those are people that we found around the world, and we celebrated them at the awards. And I was so blessed to have brands like Selfridges and Marni fly in from Italy. We had Vogue represented. We had Selfridges represented.
Wow.
I mean, it was incredible. So this is why I do what I do, because one, people have this idea about luxury being exclusive. It is. It's about craftsmanship. It's about rarity, but it's also about creativity. It's also about diversity. Because if there was no diversity, we wouldn't have people like Coco Chanel, who came up, who was an orphan. She was raised in an orphanage. She didn't have a very posh background. Gucci was founded by Guccio Gucci. He used to be a porter at the Savoy, and Louis Vuitton. He walked barefoot to Paris. He was that poor.
Wow.
So when you dive into the origins and the beginnings of luxury brands, you find that the people who started the brands that we are hailing today came from really, really poor and diverse backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
To me, when I look at diversity in luxury, I'm talking about, I say to luxury brands, your vision can be inclusive, but the execution can be exclusive. Because for luxury to survive, because right now there's a lot of changes in the luxury sector right now, because people aren't spending as much. And my point that people of color spend the most on luxury, because China reduced their spending on certain luxury brands, the impact has been devastating to a certain extent. And now it's countries like Japan that is spending a lot on luxury. South Korea is spending a lot. Countries in Africa, Nigeria, for example, is the second largest buyer of champagne outside of France.
Wow, I did not know that.
Exactly. So when you look at the stats, it's good to have diversity, but I also look at the figures, because without those figures, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. So I look at the figures as well. So everything I say is backed up with data and figures. And I say, my plea to brands are, if you don't do it for the fact that is the right thing to do, at least do it for the money, because the data is there to support the fact that the diverse boards, they make more money. The more diverse the board, the more money they make, because they are aware of the needs of a diverse community.
Right. And they now have access. The more diversity they have, the more access they have to diverse people groups, which they wouldn't have were it not for them diversifying their board.
Exactly. And that also got me thinking, you know what, there was something else I could do. And that's why I wrote my book, The Luxpreneur. During my research, I was coming across books about luxury or books about luxury business, beautifully written, nicely referenced, but they were written by professors of luxury. They were written by academics or by people who had worked in big luxury brands. But my book is from the perspective of a founder. And the way I wrote the book, they say, oh my God, it's the roadmap to setting up a luxury business. Or if you want to level up your business and you want to know how to get into the luxury sector, you need the book. And the way I wrote the book is in 3 parts. The first part, I talk about you as an entrepreneur. I talk about, for example, somebody like Coco Chanel, who put her own DNA into the brand. I talk about archetypes. So what type of person are you? For example, I'm an artisan. And that means I'm not going to keep an eye on the money. So that means I need people around me, like a great accountant, a great business manager, a great marketing person, to make sure that the cakes I create, which are beautiful, are actually being sold, right?
Yes.
I need people like that around me, because I'm self-aware enough to know what my weaknesses are. And then the next part of the book, I talk about the pillars of a luxury brand. So there are 5. Imagine a table with 4 legs, and then you have a central pillar running through it. And one of the pillars, the pillar running through it, is storytelling. How do you, and people talk about storytelling. I break down how to tell your story in a very compelling way, because without your story, all you're doing is creating expensive products that doesn't resonate with anybody. Because with luxury, one of the differences between a luxury brand and a non-luxury brand is that emotional resonance. Then the third part of the book, which many people quickly rush to, is the different types of luxury clients. Because I identified 8 types, because usually people talk about old money, new money. I think that's a bit reductive and lazy, and in a way insulting, because in my mind, money is money. Sorry, money is money, and I don't care where it comes from, but it tells you each archetype, what motivates them, why they buy the way they buy, why they are the way they are, how they buy, and more importantly, where you can find them and how you sell to them. Because what resonates to one person will not resonate with another person. So that in a nutshell is a quick skip and a hop to describe my book.
Wow. And we have it pictured here for those that are watching on video. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, and you can get it on Amazon. It looks, and I'm so excited about this book.
Thank you so much. And it was a learning process for me as well. The book, I had to dig deep because I had all these thoughts in my head. Luckily, I had people around me to challenge my thinking and to say to me, okay, this is great knowledge, but the people reading it, you need to think of, so when you're writing, you need to think of your audience. So I had a female editor and a male editor, and I thought the female would be my voice and the male will be the one to challenge, but it worked the opposite way. The male voice was literally what I was thinking in my head, but it was the female editor that was like, nope, you need more, you need this. And the challenge was rigorous. So I was so happy to be able to, so they were my midwives in delivering the book.
I love it. I love it. And I love that you recognized where your weaknesses were so that you could surround yourself with the people who had those skills and those traits to make a well-rounded core of whatever it takes to be successful at whatever it is that you're trying to do. That's one of the things I think as business owners, some business owners feel like, well, I have to do everything, especially if they're solopreneurs or brand new entrepreneurs. They're like, oh, well, I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to. And no, you don't. You don't have to be the one to do everything. You surround yourself with people who have that expertise and that passion to do that thing that's not your thing. Right.
I think sometimes that's something I've had to learn the hard way, because culture and upbringing affect the way we see things. So if you've always done it yourself, if you've had no help, sometimes you find it so difficult to ask for help. That was the difference between this book and the first book I wrote earlier, because my first book, it was about a subject matter that I knew like the back of my hand, making cakes, creating cakes. So the process was relatively easier and it didn't need as much rigorous checks and counter checks. But this time I just said to myself, this is a business book. I've never written a business book before. Therefore, I kind of had an idea of getting people to tell me what I didn't know. So it's about knowing what I didn't know and not knowing what I didn't know. So I had to make sure, and I thought, I'm not going to just have someone who is agreeing with me all the time.
Right.
I wanted someone to really, because the person who's the critiquing and challenging, they're preparing you for the negative reviews you're going to get of your book.
That's right. That is right. It is preparation. And you have to be able, so kudos to you for that. First of all, kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
And that preparation is so necessary, because if you don't think about what could be or what could happen, you end up getting blindsided. And then if you get blindsided by something, it can really shake you. and maybe cause you to feel a little less secure in who you are or what you're doing, or just cause you to question some things because you weren't prepared. So it is so crucial, I think, to have people around you who can ask those hard questions. Well, what are you going to say if they say this? Or what are you going to do if they do this? And how are you going to respond if they say whatever, have attitude or be negative? What you have to be prepared for that negativity. Not that you go out looking for it, but when you are prepared for to prepared to make a response, then I think that just increases your confidence level and keeps you from being shaken.
Absolutely. I completely agree. It was really funny because I was being interviewed about the book, and then the interviewer suddenly said, "Oh my God, I really believe that," because the interviewer had read the book.
Mhm.
And the interview was very complimentary. "Oh my God, it's so rich. It's this, it's that. I learned so much," and blah, blah, blah. And then the interviewer was really, really questioning and querying and challenging. "I don't agree with this." And then I was very easy in my answers. And I was like, "Yes, and this section, I actually said blah, blah, blah." And they said, "Oh my God, I truly believe that you really wrote the book." And no, but you see, but they were valid, because what people don't sometimes know is that sometimes a lot of the successful books out there, they've been ghost written. So
Ah.
there's nothing wrong with ghostwriting,
Mm.
but sometimes obviously the ideas, the interviews, they're all done so that when the book is then put together, it's written professionally. The story is still yours, the ideas are still yours, but the writing of it is somebody else.
Mm.
And some people declare that in the book, and some people don't declare that in the
Mm.
book. So his reasoning, the questioning was, he just wanted to know, did you really do it, or did somebody? Because the way, and I'm like, of course I did.
Mhm. Right. Oh my goodness. So you were prepared because number one, you wrote it. You know what
Yeah.
you wrote. You know why you wrote it. So of course, but that makes me think about, and this may be a whole nother subject for a whole nother day, but there's so many people who call themselves authors now, and AI wrote the book.
Yeah, but you know what though? As long as you declare that this is written by AI, and I always say, and when it comes to technology, I'm an early adopter of technology, and I say this about AI. It's what we were told many, many years ago: GIGO, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If your prompts are useless, you're going to get useless material out. Or
Mm.
if you just take whatever AI gives you and you don't challenge it, you don't query it, you don't examine it, and you put it in a book, again, you're going to get garbage. So
Mm.
it really depends on you as an individual. But there are certain things AI cannot write because AI was trained with data sets obtained from Google, the internet, etc. So the degree of how good an AI is, it depends on the data sets with which the AI was trained.
Yes.
And if you notice, you can always tell when a post is AI because it's sometimes too perfect. There's that human, it lacks that human voice, that human nuance.
Yeah.
So if people want to go ahead and do AI, you can do AI.
Right.
But it's not going to be your voice. It's going to be AI's voice.
Right. And but I just feel some kind of way about somebody saying, "Oh, I'm an author," and they just went, "Here, this is my prompt."
Exactly.
You know, you're an author of a prompt. That's what you are. You're an author of a prompt.
You're
Anyway.
a prompt list.
Right. So this has been so rich and so educational. And so if you have one trait that you would say every business owner needs to have, if they're thinking about targeting the luxury industry or the high net worth clients, what traits do they need to have? And then tell us how to stay in touch with you.
First, you need to have the luxury mindset. You don't have to live a luxury life, but you need to have a luxury mindset. Second, you need to have a mindset of truly serving and delivering value. A lot of people sometimes, and the people I coach as well, I have to break the news to them that you are doing bare minimum. Sorry that you're trying to measure yourself against industry standards when you should be much, much higher. So, because when it comes to luxury clients, their bare minimum is probably your peak. So you need to think about that. Third thing I say is that don't think that your product has got to be perfect. You don't need a perfect product. The product has got to be good, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And people get confused when I say that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, because people think that, oh my God, it's going to be the best of the best or whatever. No, it's going to be good. And my good is probably somebody's perfect or whatever. But when I know what I mean when I say good, it's got to be something that I think, oh my goodness, this is a good product. Then you build on that. And because at the end of the day, it's all about perception. And build on that by your ability to tell the story of your product in such a compelling way that you move people from, I can't afford this, to how can I afford this? I'm going to put my name down, and I'm going to put my name down on a waiting list, and I'm going to make it happen. That is desirability. So it's not about, some people say, oh, you've got to be able to overcome objections. And I'm like, in luxury, no, because that is a battle of wills. That is you trying to force someone to, and in fact, in luxury, if somebody doesn't want to buy from you, it's like, bye, see ya, you move back. Because the more you withdraw and the more exclusive you make your product, the more people want to buy. That is the essence of luxury. There are other traits as well. I've got a shed load more in the book, I promise you. But those immediately, it's about, without the mindset, everything else will not fall into place. So you need to, because the mindset will determine pricing. And a lot of people, funnily enough, a lot of people price too low. They price way too high for the value that they're delivering, thinking, oh, nobody else is doing what I'm doing. And then I show them 10 other people doing it better. Wow. So pricing, because mindset, pricing, business model, just so many things that you need to consider.
Right. Oh, I love it. I love that. What great advice. It all starts in the mind, and we have to get control over it and face whatever demons we may have had in the past. If we want to get to the next level, we have to get control of our mind and control our thoughts and recognize that we deserve to be there. If we want to get there, we can get there, and we deserve to be there.
Absolutely.
I love it. So Elizabeth, we're putting up your website, so elizabethsolaru.com on the screen. What other platforms can we see all of your beautiful material cakes? Get your books, elizabethcakeemporium.com. Is all of the amazing photos. Diversityandluxury.com. I see that one. Are we missing anything?
Just if you want to connect with me personally, LinkedIn is the best way. I love being on LinkedIn. That is my home right now. Not that I don't respond to other platforms, but LinkedIn is where you can find all my writings about luxury on a daily basis. So for example, yesterday I talk about Formula One collaboration with LVMH and how small brands can collaborate similarly. So if you have no money, how you can do something similar without a shed load of money. So I try to interpret whatever it is happening in the luxury world on how a small business can do it. So LinkedIn right now that's my thing.
Wow, you are such a blessing, Elizabeth, because there's so many small businesses who do want to be in that luxury business or reach that next level of going luxury and offering their services to luxury high net worth clients. So thank you so much for all you do, Elizabeth. You were made for something great. So go and be awesome.